A distressed young man is restrained by a companion, shouting frantically at a stern figure in the foreground to demand answers. The older man turns his back to leave, ignoring the agonizing screams of grief echoing behind him. Tears stream down the young man's face as he is mocked for his powerlessness to avenge his wife or speak a single word. Desperate to keep the elder from departing, he clenches his fists and cries out for him to wait. The elder pauses in the shadows, glancing back with a grim and irritated expression. He stands motionless for a moment, leaving the grieving man behind him in a tense silence. The young man trembles with overwhelming sorrow and frustration, tears continuing to fall from his wide eyes. A heavy door slides shut, cutting off the light and ending the confrontation with a final thud. Later, the young man walks alone through the courtyard, his resolve hardening with every step he takes. His pace quickens into a sprint as he dashes through the night, driven by a sudden sense of urgency. He grits his teeth in anger, running faster as the emotions he suppressed begin to surface. With his gaze fixed ahead, he rushes desperately toward his destination, ignoring everything else. Tears blur his vision once more, but a fierce determination burns in his eyes as he refuses to stop. He arrives to find a massive fire raging, the flames consuming a building and lighting up the dark sky. Frozen in horror, he witnesses a silhouette standing amidst the inferno, holding a weapon over a fallen body. The swordsman quietly prepares his weapon, signaling the start of the confrontation. Flames begin to consume the bodies of those who have already fallen in battle. The remaining enemy reveals a savage grin, eager for violence. In response to the threat, the swordsman simply offers a bright, mocking smile. The lack of seriousness provokes the attacker, whose temper instantly snaps. The swordsman continues to smirk, seemingly unbothered by his opponent's rage. Suddenly dropping the axe, he shifts into a sharp and disciplined combat stance. Fury takes over the enemy as he charges forward with explosive intensity. The swordsman calmly tracks the incoming assault, his focus sharpening. The brute's attack misses its mark, tearing through the ground and causing massive destruction. As the dust settles from the impact, the swordsman watches the debris without flinching. He observes the chaos with a look of calm indifference. Undeterred, the enemy launches a surprise ambush from the air, aiming to crush his target. The swordsman's hand tightens around his hilt, ready to intercept the blow. With blinding speed, a decisive counterattack cuts through the air. A dark-haired warrior moves swiftly through the chaos, his intense gaze focused amidst the flying debris. A woman stands silently, watching a large traditional gate being consumed by raging flames. The warrior emerges from the inferno, his silhouette framed by the fire as he wields a glowing blade. He casually tosses his weapon aside as he approaches the waiting woman. Despite his face being splattered with blood, he offers a bright and cheerful smile. The woman holds out a scroll but hesitates, asking him to wipe the blood from his face before taking it. Standing before the burning structure, the warrior begins to clean himself up while the woman watches. He uses his fingers to wipe the streaks of blood from his cheek. Peering out, he checks if he is presentable enough, though traces of the battle remain. He laughs heartily and playfully tosses the scroll into the air, startling his companion. Covering his face with a cloth to finish cleaning, he turns and begins to walk away from the scene. He strides past the woman, leaving the burning gate behind him. The woman turns to watch him leave, and he pauses momentarily in his tracks. Later, the setting shifts to Hualong County in Hubei Province, where the warrior appears energetic and refreshed. A small boat carries travelers across a wide river, moving peacefully through a landscape of towering mountains. A sharp gaze peers out from beneath the brim of a hat, hinting at a hidden intensity. A memory flashes of a figure running desperately toward a large gate in the dead of night. The warrior recalls his past training, wielding a sword with grace amidst falling petals. A wicked confidence once surged through him, marked by a glowing eye and a fearless smile. Back in the present, the traveler clutches his belongings tightly, grinning with greedy delight. He stands on the small boat, chuckling to himself while the boatman watches him with suspicion. Unable to contain his excitement, he points to the sky and bursts into raucous laughter. The boatman wonders if his passenger is insane, but the traveler just smirks, unbothered by the judgment. He continues to laugh heartily, enjoying the ride as the boat cuts through the water. The rower hesitantly asks if he's heading to the local haunted manor, as it is the only one for sale. Ignoring the ominous implication, the traveler cheerfully bids the boatman farewell and good fortune. His laughter echoes loudly across the river as he prepares to claim his new home. However, his triumphant expression instantly crumbles into a look of bewildered shock. He stands before the property as the agent presents it, revealing a dilapidated and gloomy ruin. Furious at the deception, he violently grabs the agent by the robes and shakes him. A young martial artist inspects a property accompanied by a nervous broker. The broker leads the way through the courtyard, proudly announcing the existence of 5 separate training halls. The young man remarks that it is rare to find a place with so many facilities, though he remains skeptical. He pauses to think, wondering why such a large location is available. With a weary sigh, he listens as the broker tries to laugh away the awkward atmosphere. The young man is startled to confirm that the previous occupants actually died on the premises. The broker admits the dark history, describing how a massacre left the grounds rumored to be haunted. Indignant, the young man asks if the broker seriously intends to sell him a haunted house. However, the low price is too good to resist, and both men burst into laughter as they agree to the deal. The transaction is finalized as the young man reaches for the deed while the broker takes the payment. He holds the scroll in his hands, staring at the document that proves his ownership. A sudden shiver runs through him as he clutches the scroll, realizing the potential danger he has just accepted. The broker waves a cheerful goodbye, delighted to have sold the property and secured the money. As the broker walks away satisfied, the young man watches him leave from the doorway. Now the sole master of the sect, he stands alone in the silent hall, ready to settle into his new home. A sudden commotion disturbs the quiet atmosphere of the compound, shocking the onlookers nearby. The young man strikes the wooden pillar repeatedly, laughing with wild and uncontainable excitement. The impact kicks up a cloud of dust, leaving him leaning against the structure as the debris settles. He immediately transitions into his chores, scrubbing the wooden floors with incredible speed and intensity. Not stopping there, he reaches up to vigorously dust the high beams and ceilings. He wipes down the pillars until they are spotless, smiling with satisfaction at his hard work. The labor continues outside as he hauls a bucket down the long stone staircase. With the cleaning finally complete, he throws open the doors to the main hall. Inside the quiet room, a single black sword rests with dignity on a display stand. The young man approaches the weapon, studying it with a thoughtful and curious expression. He lifts the sword from the stand and prepares to draw the blade. His eyes widen as his focus sharpens completely on the weapon in his hands. Taking a proper martial stance, he holds the sword ready to begin his practice. He moves with sudden agility, swinging the blade through the air. However, he's instantly startled as a sharp force cuts through the air right in front of his face. The swordsman strikes the ground, crushing a small insect beneath his blade. A memory of his master surfaces, and he smiles confidently as he begins to understand the situation. High above, a mechanical tube begins to hiss, preparing to fire. He identifies the device, deducing that it was the source of the iron orb attack from earlier. The mechanism activates suddenly, launching a projectile with a burst of light. He shouts a challenge to the trap, frantically deflecting the incoming attacks with his sword. With a powerful swing, he attempts to slice through the assault. However, the intensity of the attack catches him off guard, leaving him momentarily vulnerable. The impact sends him flying backward, tumbling helplessly through the air. He manages to land and slides across the floor, using his sword to break against the momentum. He pauses to catch his breath, staring intently at the blade in his hand. A sudden epiphany strikes him regarding the nature of the weapon he is holding. With a newfound understanding, he stands up and readies himself for the next round. He focuses his mind, his expression turning serious as he prepares his counterattack. Having solved the puzzle, he launches himself forward with explosive speed. A lone figure plummets from the heights, diving headfirst into the vast open chamber. Below him, a forest of towering metal pillars rises from the floor, waiting to catch his fall. He twists his body in mid-air, sharpening his focus as the ground rushes up to meet him. With a sudden motion, he unleashes a sweeping slash to cut through the obstacles in his path. Metal clashes against metal as he violently deflects the hazards surrounding him. The sheer intensity of the descent forces him to grit his teeth as he pushes through the resistance. He reaches out desperately, struggling to maintain his balance amidst the chaotic fall. Regaining his momentum, he swings his blade again, carving a wide path through the air. Raw energy begins to crackle around him, sparking with dangerous intensity near his eyes. The power erupts upon impact, blasting the area with a massive explosion of blue energy. Smoke and debris billow upward as the structure rumbles from the force of the blow. Undeterred, he spins rapidly, generating a vortex of lightning to shield his continued descent. He breaks through the turbulence, diving straight down toward his target with renewed speed. Gathering all his power into his blade, he prepares to unleash a devastating technique named Crescent. He strikes the surface with overwhelming force, sending a massive shockwave tearing through the floor. A surge of energy erupts as the mechanism shatters into pieces. The martial artist crouches low to evade the blast, while debris scatters harmlessly behind his back. He quickly rises to his feet, realizing the danger isn't over because the steel orbs remain active. To his shock, the weapon in his hand disintegrates, leaving him holding nothing but a crumbling hilt. With the immediate threat seemingly gone, he scans the quiet hall and wonders if the battle has finally concluded. Overcome by exhaustion, he collapses onto the stone floor to catch his breath. Suddenly, a mystical blue sword materializes and hovers in the air above him. He reaches out and firmly grasps the energy blade, a confident smile returning to his face. A system window appears, informing him that the trial will only end once he assigns a name to the manor. The requirement brings an amused grin to his face. He stands tall and triumphant, radiating an aura of power that takes the form of a dragon behind him. A glowing symbol etches itself onto the palm of his hand, marking his new authority. Suddenly, he pauses and turns his attention toward the entrance of the hall. His expression sharpens into surprise as he senses an unexpected disturbance. Heavy footsteps approach the doors, accompanied by a threatening voice warning that the manor could be taken back. The young master shouts forcefully, his eyes glowing with an intense light. Unperturbed, the older man calmly notes down the need to order uniforms. Losing his patience, the young master seizes the man by his collar to get his attention. A spirit voice complains about being invisible, while the man explains everyone is busy with the Yellow Dragon Hall. The man nervously adds that the young master must have heard of them. The young master releases the man and leans back against the table. The older man adjusts his collar and sighs in relief. The young master looks on, his expression serious. The older man sips tea and confirms. The older man sips tea and confirms continuation. The older man sips tea and confirms continuation. Continuation. The older man sips tea and confirms continuation. 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 The older man sips tea and confirms continuation. 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 The older man sips tea and confirms continuation. 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 The older man sips tea and confirms. Continuação. 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 The mere mention of that rumor fills him with a dark, seething rage. The man across the table cowers in fear, trying to appease the sudden outburst of killing intent. Unable to contain his frustration, he shouts his denial at the top of his lungs. Yet just as quickly as the anger appeared, he puts on a bright, carefree smile to say his goodbyes. He storms out of the building, trying to console himself with a positive thought as he leaves. With a casual flick of his finger, he sends a small object flying through the air. As he walks through the town, he ignores the hushed whispers of the crowd around him. Suddenly, he stops and turns his head, his attention caught by a disturbance nearby. In the middle of the street, a thug is roughly manhandling a young boy. The desperate child screams for help, explaining that these men deceived him and stole the money meant to cure his sick sister. His plea is cut short as a brutal punch sends him crashing to the ground, blood spraying from his mouth. The protagonist watches silently from behind as the gang members revel in their cruelty. The situation escalates when one of the thugs draws his blade, threatening to cut down the terrified old man and the boy. A cruel, malicious grin spreads across the attacker's face as he prepares to strike. But before the blade can fall, a lightning-fast kick slams into the thug's face with explosive force. An attacker is slammed violently into the ground, completely overwhelmed by the force of the blow. Undeterred by their comrade's fall, two more assassins rush forward with a shout to continue the assault. The young martial artist stands firm, shielding the terrified old man and child behind him from the violence. He offers a confident smirk, crossing his arms as if inviting the enemies to try their luck. One attacker leaps high into the air, descending with a blade aimed straight for the kill. With fluid grace, the martial artist moves to intercept the aerial assault, easily outpacing his opponent. He delivers a crushing counterattack in midair, striking the enemy with brutal precision. As the defeated foe lies buried in the dirt, the warrior stands tall while more enemies hesitate in the background. The martial artist's gaze sharpens, his eyes glowing with a cold, focused intensity. Another desperate attacker charges in, swinging his staff with wild fury. The strike hits nothing but air as the warrior vanishes, reappearing instantly behind his opponent's guard. A swift, heavy blow strikes the attacker's back before he can even realize he missed. The force of the impact sends the enemy flying backward, crashing into the dust across the battlefield. The warrior covers his face and sighs in frustration, annoyed by how far the ridiculous rumors about him have spread. Elsewhere, the sudden realization causes a man to spit out his drink in sheer shock. The grey-robed warrior points a finger at his opponent, silently challenging him to make the first move. The swordsman glares back, his expression hardening as he processes the blatant provocation. With a confident smirk, the warrior curls his finger, taunting his enemy to come and attack. Taking the bait, the swordsman leaps high into the air to deliver a crushing downward strike. The blade smashes into the ground with explosive force, but the warrior has already vanished from the point of impact. Moving with incredible speed, the warrior charges through the rising dust to close the distance. The swordsman swings his blade in a wide, desperate arc, but his opponent effortlessly ducks beneath the attack. Slipping past the defense, the warrior lands a heavy palm strike directly into the swordsman's chest. The impact is devastating, driving the enemy backward as the blow connects. Unable to withstand the force, the swordsman is launched through the air and crashes violently onto the ground. He lies on the dirt, gritting his teeth in pain as the shock of the impact rattles his body. The warrior stands over his fallen foe, his eyes glowing with blue energy as he grips the weapon. The defeated man stares in terror as the blade is driven into the earth, stopping mere inches from his neck. With the threat neutralized, the warrior turns his attention to the bystanders to ask if they are unharmed. The young boy looks up in wide-eyed amazement at the hero who just saved them. A young boy suddenly throws himself to the ground, bowing deeply before the man in grey robes. The man is taken aback by the sudden gesture as a holographic interface flickers into existence beside him. The boy lifts his head, showing a confident smile on his dirty face. Reading the status window, the man grins widely upon realizing the boy possesses a high-grade potential. The sun begins to set, casting an orange glow over the rugged mountain peaks. As they travel through the woods, the boy marches ahead stubbornly while the adults follow. The man in robes looks confused by the situation, while the elder strokes his beard in contemplation. Upon reaching a dilapidated village, the boy runs ahead toward a large, worn-out wooden structure. The man follows the boy inside, the old wooden door creaking as he enters. He maintains an awkward, polite smile as he steps into the humble dwelling. Inside, thin hands are stretched out toward a bright fire to catch some warmth. The man's polite expression vanishes, replaced by a look of sudden shock. A young girl sitting by the fire turns around, surprised by the sudden intrusion. The man stands motionless in the doorway, looking down at the girl resting on the floor of the ruined shack. He stares at her with intense focus as the system interface activates once again. The young woman looks up, her attention suddenly captured. The martial artist stands before her by the crackling campfire, looking down with intent. An elder speaks passionately to the girl, though she simply smiles in response to his intensity. The younger man interrupts to offer a pulse check, surprising the girl with his sudden request. He reaches out smoothly, taking her hand to begin the examination. As he holds her wrist, a mystical energy begins to hum and surround her body. He presses his fingers against her pulse, channeling power that manifests as a bright flash of light. Sitting across from her, he closes his eyes and focuses deeply on reading her internal energy flow. His expression turns serious as he concentrates on the strange resonance within her. Suddenly, he opens his eyes in disbelief and asks her to confirm the impossible reality he just sensed. Within her body, he perceives a pristine and powerful vessel of spiritual energy. This energy manifests as a vision of a celestial swordswoman, revealing a legendary and rare constitution. The girl sits innocently by the fire, completely unaware of the grand potential hidden inside her. Overwhelmed by the headache this discovery will cause him, the man covers his face and sighs deeply. The girl stares at him in confusion, wondering why the examination led to such a troubled reaction. The woman is devastated to hear that there is no cure for the child's condition, and tears well up in her eyes. The protagonist and the elder listen silently as she bows her head in despair over the hopeless situation. Suddenly, a magical system interface manifests before the protagonist, catching him off guard. The system offers a specific reward for a new quest, Essence Water, an item that can boost recovery rates. The protagonist immediately realizes that completing this quest will solve his problems and hers at the same time. Making up his mind, he slaps his knee to break the silence and leans in with new energy. He reaches out a hand toward the grieving woman, offering his assistance with a confident smile. The woman and the sick child look up, completely stunned by his sudden offer of help. He gazes at them with a look of assurance, signaling that he has a plan to save them. The woman hesitates, sweating nervously as she tries to process what is happening. A memory flashes through her mind of a time when she stood before a martial arts master. She recalls the tragic end of that path, remembering the pain of seeing a comrade fall while she could do nothing. The trauma of her past leaves her frozen, staring blankly as the weight of the decision settles on her. The protagonist keeps his hand extended, patiently waiting for her to grasp the lifeline he is offering. Slowly, the shock fades from her face, replaced by a glimmer of hope as she looks at him. The young martial artist extends a welcoming hand, a confident smile on his face. The girl stares at him blankly, surprised by the sudden offer of assistance. She exhales a nervous breath, her cheeks flushing slightly as she lowers her guard. With a shy smile, she reaches out and firmly grasps his hand. Suddenly, the young master's expression tightens with intense concentration. A bright, humming energy begins to radiate from his palm, enveloping their joined hands. The girl watches in wonder as the mystical light washes over her. His eyes glow with power as he focuses on channeling his internal energy. A swirling vortex of blue light surrounds them, actively restoring the girl's health. He pushes through the exertion, ensuring the healing process is fully completed. As the energy dissipates, the girl looks down at her hands, stunned by the sudden return of her vitality. She sits back near the campfire while the young boy beside her stares in amazement. The boy rushes to hug her in relief, while the elder turns to the young master and asks if he used energy arts to heal her. The young martial artist simply sits there with a relaxed posture and a gentle smile. The elder leans in, his face contorted with shock as he realizes the magnitude of what just happened. The young martial artist listens intently, his gaze sharp and focused on the speaker. Inside a dimly lit wooden shelter, a fire crackles warmly while a woman and child rest in the background. The storyteller recounts the legend of a formidable elder who radiated an aura as fierce as a golden dragon. In the tale, 3 figures kneel in submission before a powerful sect leader standing in a courtyard. The tension explodes into violence as a hand crushes a wooden post with enough force to draw blood. The white sword sect leader looks down with a cold, imperious glare, asserting his dominance. A merchant pleads desperately for his life, citing his guild's service to the palace while his companions are restrained. Terror consumes the man as he screams, begging for just one more chance to prove his worth. Unmoved by the desperate cries, the sect leader turns his back and begins to walk away. A sinister expression twists the face of a man in the shadows, reveling in the cruelty of the moment. Back in the present, the young listener looks disturbed, sweat forming on his brow from the intensity of the story. The fire continues to burn between them as the old man finishes recounting these dark memories. The old storyteller strokes his beard and bursts into hearty laughter, breaking the tension. He waves his hand casually to the woman and child, who bow deeply to him in gratitude. With a warm smile, the old man speaks again, dismissing the need for such formalities. The young man's expression turns serious as he senses a sudden shift in the atmosphere. A system warning appears before him, identifying the grinning elder as a potential threat. A dark vision reveals the old man's sinister nature, looming like a shadow over an army of warriors. The young man shifts his posture, preparing to address the dangerous figure before him. He firmly declines the offer, surprising the disciples watching from the background. A confident grin spreads across his face as he delivers his refusal. The old master crosses his arms, his displeasure clearly visible. The young man maintains a sly look, seemingly unbothered by the tension he has caused. Anger begins to radiate from the elder, his face flushing red with suppressed fury. Despite the threatening atmosphere, the young man continues to smile cheerfully. A lonely wind blows past the exterior of the thatched hut as the standoff continues. Suddenly, the old master throws his head back and bursts into loud, boisterous laughter. He leans forward with an intense, glowing stare, but the young man remains completely unfazed. A cunning smirk sharpens on the young warrior's face, showing no fear. In a bold move, he reaches out and firmly grabs the old master by the face. The old master sits comfortably on the wooden floor, letting out a low, amused chuckle. Across from him, the young martial artist observes the elder with a calm and steady gaze. Suddenly, the old man's aura flares up intensely, manifesting as a ferocious dragon breathing fire. In response, the young man releases his own spiritual pressure, which takes the form of a lightning-clad white tiger. The intense standoff ends as the elder stands up, leaving the young man and the 2 children sitting quietly on the floor. A sudden realization strikes the old man, causing him to shout in shock about the silk. Outside in the courtyard, the elder stands before a group of kneeling figures and a waiting carriage. The young man marvels at a massive stack of valuable fabric, wondering just how much it is all worth. He notes how advanced the goods are, sweating slightly as he realizes the scale of the situation. As the scene shifts, a cold wind blows over the dark, mountainous landscape. The old master bursts into hearty laughter, looking thoroughly satisfied with the turn of events. A carriage travels steadily along the road, the sound of horses' hooves echoing in the night. The warm glow of the carriage lantern illuminates the path as the journey continues. Inside, the old man continues to smile, seemingly in high spirits during the ride. Above the moving carriage, the dark night sky is visible through the passing tree branches. The morning sun shines brightly over the peaceful grounds of the martial arts sect. The young master steps forward, spreading his arms wide with a bright, welcoming expression. He lands swiftly in the courtyard, showing off his movement skills to the impressed students nearby. Raising his hand, he concentrates as a glowing energy begins to manifest. A blue holographic interface appears before his eyes and he studies the text thoughtfully. With a confident smirk, he reaches out and taps the screen to confirm his selection. The female student stands nearby, waiting patiently while looking slightly confused. He turns the system window around, pointing at the screen to explain something important to her. However, he pauses for a moment, looking slightly puzzled by the situation. He stares at the girl, who points to herself with a nervous smile, asking if he means her. As he focuses his attention on her, she freezes in place, startled by his sudden intensity. She looks down, sensing a strange and sudden shift within her body. She raises her hand, staring at her palm as she feels a new power flowing through it. The man smiles warmly and reaches out his hand, offering her guidance. Filled with excitement and determination, she clenches her fists, ready to accept the new path before her. The young martial artist holds a strenuous stance, pushing her palms forward with intense focus. Her body trembles with exhaustion as sweat runs down her face, showing the physical toll of the training. She maintains this difficult position in the middle of the street while her master and a fellow disciple watch over her. The master casually leans his sword on his shoulder and notes that she has been holding the pose for an hour. The girl's eyes widen in shock and strain as she realizes how long she has endured the punishment. Despite the fatigue, she refuses to collapse, remaining rooted to the ground under her master's supervision. Changing her approach, she closes her eyes and begins to manifest swirling blue energy between her hands. The master smiles with satisfaction, clearly pleased to see her successfully gathering her internal energy. Suddenly, the sound of rushing footsteps interrupts the session, causing the master to turn his head. A man is violently sent flying through the air, screaming as he crashes backward from a heavy blow. An aggressor steps forward, aggressively pointing a weapon at the master while the situation escalates. The young disciple shouts angrily at the intruder while the master stands his ground with a calm demeanor. The master's expression shifts as he notices something peculiar about the situation. His eyes narrow sharply, locking onto a dangerous presence that has just revealed itself. A shadowy figure with glowing red eyes emerges from the darkness, laughing menacingly. The elder looks on with a stern expression, clearly unimpressed by the situation unfolding before him. He bursts into mocking laughter, annoying the dark-haired man whose eyes glow with irritation, while a system window displays a silent, exasperated emoticon. A sly, confident smirk crosses the young man's face as he decides how to handle the annoyance. He turns his back to leave, ignoring the girl who reaches out to him in confusion and concern. Glancing back over his shoulder with a cold stare, he leaves the girl waving her hands in a flustered panic. He rests his wooden sword casually on his shoulder, his expression unbothered and serious. The girl freezes in place, sweat running down her face as she realizes the gravity of the situation. Overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, she grabs her face and screams in sheer panic. Time passes and night falls over the mountain compound, the crescent moon illuminating the traditional rooftops. Completely exhausted from the rigorous training, the girl collapses onto the wooden floor, unable to move. Despite her fatigue, the relentless instructor looms over her and demands yet another repetition. She lies on her back, staring blankly upward as she questions how she ended up in this grueling situation. By the next day, she is forced into a trembling horse stance while her teacher watches with a satisfied smile. He cheerfully gives a thumbs up to her suffering, causing her to lose her balance and fall backward in shock. The sliding doors remain shut, concealing the intense and chaotic training happening inside. A young woman peeks around the doorframe, her attention caught by someone inside. She finds the man diligently sewing a piece of fabric, noting that he is talking to himself again. She watches him closely, curious about what he is working on so intently. The man finishes his task and holds up the cloth, inspecting his handiwork with a satisfied expression. Smiling at what she saw, the woman quietly slips away from the entrance. The scene shifts to the bustling streets of the city, filled with people going about their day. Inside a building, aggressive men confront a seated official, demanding information about a sect. A cruel leader asserts his dominance, standing with his foot crushing the head of a defeated elder. His subordinate smirks maliciously, enjoying the display of power. Elsewhere, the protagonist and the woman, now dressed in matching blue outfits, stand before a desk. They engage in conversation with the man seated there, who looks up at them. The woman smiles gently, maintaining a polite demeanor. Beside her, the protagonist looks slightly awkward and self-conscious. As they walk away, the woman struggles to hold back her laughter while the man flinches in embarrassment. A voice remarks that although the stitching on the clothes is a bit messy, the effort is genuinely liked. A heavy boot steps firmly onto the high platform, commanding attention. The sect leader addresses the vast gathering, announcing that this event is held to foster unity among the orthodox sects. An attendant waits respectfully behind him, holding a cushioned box that contains the tournament's prize. The leader opens the box, revealing a rare glowing blue pill resting inside. A murmur of shock and excitement ripples through the crowd as the young disciples stare at the treasure. The leader spreads his arms wide, shouting that the champion of the tournament will be awarded this lesser blue pill. The crowd erupts into cheers, praising the White Sword Sect leader for his immense generosity. An official descends the stairs, announcing that the preparations for the match brackets are finally complete. He surveys the eager participants with a cold, serious expression. Unseen by the crowd, a sinister grin begins to stretch across a face. The leader's expression twists into a manic, predatory smile, betraying a dark, hidden intent. Below, the martial artists gather around the central sparring stage, ready for the competition to begin. The blue-haired disciple grips her wooden sword tightly, looking nervous about the upcoming fight. She stands stiffly, feeling the pressure of the moment. Her companion turns to her with a relaxed smile, offering words of encouragement to calm her nerves. The master stands behind his student, offering a final moment of encouragement before the match begins. He smiles with absolute confidence, while she absorbs his words with a serious expression. Gripping her wooden staff, the young woman prepares herself, her eyes filled with determination. She steps forward, ascending the stairs to enter the arena floor. She recalls the moment her training began, remembering the overwhelming power her master displayed. The two combatants stand ready on opposite sides of the ring as the referee prepares to officiate the duel. Her opponent watches her closely, and the atmosphere in the arena grows tense. She acknowledges the truth of her situation, realizing she has only been training for a single month. The referee raises his flags and shouts loudly to signal the start of the fight. The opponent strikes first with a confident swing, but she swiftly ducks under his weapon to launch a counterattack. A loud crack echoes through the air as the impact occurs. She lands a devastating blow to his chest, sending him flying backward with a pained gasp. The immense force of the strike blasts the man across the arena, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. He crashes heavily onto the floor, completely knocked out by the single attack. The referee stands frozen in shock, stunned by the sudden and overwhelming victory. The spectators in the crowd watch the tournament with expressions of shock and surprise. The referee stares in disbelief at the arena, while the young man in the blue robe smiles confidently from the stands. The female fighter looks up with excitement as the match continues. From the audience, the young man gives her a thumbs up to show his support. She immediately swings her staff with great force, launching an attack. The blow connects squarely, striking her opponent before he can react. As her opponent lies defeated on the ground, she smiles cheerfully while the referee declares her the winner. The crowd cheers loudly for her victory as the young man watches on. He begins to evaluate the other participants, looking to see if any other fighters show promise. His attention is drawn to a new match involving a disciple of the White Sword Sect. The swordsman leaps into the air, initiating a swift attack against his enemy. He lands a brutal strike directly to his opponent's face. The man grimaces in agony as the heavy blow leaves him defenseless. A dark, menacing aura surrounds the swordsman as he raises his weapon over the fallen fighter. He brings the blade down with ruthless intensity to finish the match. A man cries out in shock as a violent commotion erupts on the street. A sword slashes through a victim, spraying blood across the air. The swordsman responsible looks back with a cold, unfeeling gaze. The protagonist walks away from the scene, ignoring the bloodshed, while a girl runs to catch up with him. She reaches his side, beaming with a bright and cheerful smile. Holding her hand, the protagonist remarks that their plan is working well, unaware of the killer walking past them in the background. The girl suddenly freezes in terror, sensing a dark and menacing aura from the passing swordsman. The protagonist notices her distress, and the protagonist notices her distress, and continuação. The protagonist notices her distress, and continuação. The protagonist notices her distress, and continuação. The protagonist notices her distress and continuação, 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 continuação. The protagonist notices her distress and continuação. Continuação, 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 continuação. The protagonist notices her distress and continuação, 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 continuação. The protagonist notices her distress and continuação, que é continuação. Continuação, 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 continuação. An elder watches the situation unfold with visible irritation and disdain. He calls out Wang Pal's name sharply while striding past the confused group of disciples. A sinister grin crosses the elder's face as he leaves, while the others watch him go in silence. The dark-haired young man turns his attention to Wang Pal, who seems unsure of what just happened. Wang Pal stands there with a helpless gesture, looking completely bewildered. However, a deeper inspection reveals that Wang Pal possesses an excellent physical frame and a natural talent for learning martial arts quickly. The young master stares down at him, assessing the hidden potential within his large build. Wang Pal tries to explain himself to his companions, gesturing earnestly. Suddenly, the young master grabs Wang Pal from behind, physically kneading his muscles to test their quality. A manic, excited grin spreads across the young master's face as he confirms his suspicions. Wang Pal attempts to demonstrate a move, but his motion is incredibly stiff and awkward. The girl watches the clumsy display with pure shock and disbelief. The young master crosses his arms and smirks, seemingly amused by the contradiction he has found. This brings to mind a moment from the past where Wang Pal stood dejectedly before an instructor. The instructor dismissed him, claiming that despite his size, he was too weak on the inside and destined only for menial chores. A memory surfaces of a young man smiling brightly, his face full of innocence. The scene abruptly shifts to violence as he collapses onto the training ground. Defeated by a ruthless opponent, he clutches his injured shoulder in agony, crying out as the pain feels incredibly real. His attacker stands over him, panting heavily with a manic grin while holding a bloodied wooden sword. Terrified and cowering on the floor, he looks up and stammers, asking Jingwang why he is here. Jingwang suddenly halts his assault, whipping his head around as something else catches his attention. The defeated man follows the gaze, looking up toward the balcony of the building in shock. His expression goes blank as he witnesses something that leaves him stunned. A sudden, overwhelming realization strikes him like a bolt of lightning. He gasps for air and bolts upright in bed, waking up from the nightmare drenched in cold sweat. Still trembling from the vivid dream, he covers his mouth and tries to compose himself. He turns to find that Jingwang is actually in the room with him, calmly cleaning a weapon. The long-haired man focuses on wiping down the blade, seemingly unbothered by the sudden commotion. Jingwang shoots a sharp, piercing glare at the man on the bed, cutting through the silence. Standing up, Jingwang slides the door open and prepares to leave, giving a final instruction before exiting. In the quiet of his room, a man sits alone on his bed, deep in thought. Outside, the massive arena is packed with a roaring crowd eagerly awaiting the tournament. A fighter shrouded in ominous dark energy prepares to unleash his power. Before the match, the female disciple asks her senior for advice on how to avoid being tricked. The young man simply winks at her with a mischievous, confident grin. The atmosphere around the traditional stadium buzzes with the murmurs of the excited spectators. He raises a finger to emphasize a specific point to his junior. She listens typically, clutching her training sword as she absorbs his words. The senior disciple then stands beside an elder, appearing relaxed despite the tension. They chat on the sidelines, with the younger man offering a casual remark. He flashes a wide, toothy smile, while the elder looks on with a mix of amusement and exasperation. Down in the arena, the two combatants face each other across the yin-yang symbol. The opponent stands confidently, gripping his weapon with an arrogant smirk. Suddenly, the young woman shouts out a fierce denial, correcting her opponent. Her outburst only amuses the man, who holds his head and bursts into laughter. With a loud command, the duel officially begins. The challenger charges forward instantly, shouting his certainty of victory. Their weapons collide violently in the center of the arena. The man in dark robes smiles confidently as he swings his staff down at his opponent. The woman in blue grits her teeth, barely managing to react to the speed of the attack. She is forced to leap backward to dodge the incoming strike. He pursues her relentlessly, mocking her for retreating so early in the fight. She raises her staff defensively, her expression tense. The sound of the impact rings out as she blocks another blow. Laughing maniacally, the man brings his weapon down with tremendous force. The strike hits her guard, creating a powerful shockwave that kicks up dust. She skids backward across the ground, putting distance between them. The man's grin widens as ominous purple energy begins to gather around his hand. He stands triumphantly as the dark aura rises into the air behind him. With a sudden motion, he thrusts his hand forward to unleash the dark power. Dark energy rains down on the courtyard, initiating a fierce exchange between the two martial artists. The sudden attack catches the girl off guard, the purple blast narrowly missing her as she reacts in shock. From the sidelines, a long-haired observer watches the spectacle with amusement, contrasting with his companion's concern. He grins slyly, seemingly entertained by the unfolding struggle. Recovering quickly, the girl steadies her stance and grips her weapon, ready to counterattack. She dashes across the arena, desperately trying to close the distance while evading the incoming strikes. Her opponent enjoys the chase, launching fresh waves of dark energy with a confident laugh. The girl displays impressive agility, weaving through the barrage as the blasts tear into the wooden floor around her. Deciding to end the match, the attacker apologizes mockingly before unleashing a massive sweeping wave of force. The attack strikes home, the impact sending the girl flying backward with a cry of pain. The spectators watch in silence, the outcome becoming clear to everyone present. The observer's smile returns, his assessment of the fight apparently confirmed. The victor stands triumphantly over his fallen opponent, loudly declaring his win to the crowd. Exhausted and beaten, the girl remains on her knees, gasping for breath with her head hung low. The winner looks down with disappointment, noting that he expected more from her before declaring the end of the match. The female fighter catches her breath, her expression intense and focused. She raises her weapons and shouts a challenge, declaring that the battle is not finished. Her opponent lies on the ground, looking up in sudden panic as he realizes the danger. She leaps into the air, diving downward to launch a surprise attack. The man reaches out in disbelief, unable to comprehend her relentless assault. With unwavering determination, she closes the distance for the final blow. She swings her weapon down with all her might. The strike connects heavily, slamming the opponent into the floor. A spectator watches with a grin, celebrating the girl's clear victory. His attention is suddenly drawn away from the arena by a voice nearby. An observer points out her strategy, explaining how she feigned defeat to lure the enemy in. An injured disciple argues back stubbornly, refusing to accept the loss as legitimate. A menacing shadow looms behind them, causing the dark-haired man to freeze in terror. He turns to see the sect leader himself and hastily apologizes for the disciple's rudeness. The sect leader stares down at them with a furious, silent glare. A young female martial artist cheers loudly, celebrating a triumphant moment in the arena. Watching from the sidelines, a long-haired observer casually praises the performance. Amidst the roaring crowd, a disciple in purple robes stands silently, seemingly detached from the excitement. His superior, an older man with a mustache, leans in close to speak to him. The disciple flinches, startled by the elder's sudden and aggressive presence behind him. The elder's expression turns menacing as he issues a strict command to defeat the opponent. Suddenly, the elder's hand lashes out, striking the disciple hard across the face. He looms over the younger man, shouting furiously about his lack of capability. The physical punishment continues as the elder delivers another sharp blow to his subordinate. The long-haired man interrupts the scene, leaning casually against a pillar while remarking on the severity of the discipline. The white sword sect leader pauses, his face darkening with shock and anger at the interruption. Unfazed by the tension, the intruder flashes a cheeky grin and waves a greeting,